Well, you know, they don't have to go this hard over there.
Matt here at the Bill Simmons podcast. We always go hard.
All the time.
In fact, my back is sore from going so hard in quarantine. It's the Bill Simmons podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
It's an awesome podcast.
Matt, as usual, during the spring of COVID-19, there were two podcasts last week. The first on April 13th with Russillo. The second on April 16th with Casey, obviously, Wasserman, Chris Harrison, and Mike Tolan. It's the Bill Simmons podcast.
Here we go.
Coming up, I have a podcast.
Matt, 17 seconds into the first podcast of last week, this ad botch.
Across America to deliver fresh, hot.
At 48 seconds in, this ad botch.
Through all of our podcasts, you're going to hear us talk about this.
At 136, Bill's speech impediment.
They wanted to raise money. They wanted to raise awareness.
Maybe he was trying to do an ad for that navigation service.
Owned by Google. Maybe it's Google. At 250, Matt, listen to the benefits of subscribing to the Flying Coach feed.
You'll be able to subscribe. You'll be able to get all the ones.
I was hoping that if I subscribed, Matt, what it would lead to was me getting all the ones. At 3:58, this string of errors. Listen for podcasts, a botch, and a swallow.
Ringer podcasts. So coming up, Ryan, Russillo, and I, we're going to hit a whole bunch of things, and then we're going to start a little series near the end called The Rewatchables. 6 of our favorite Michael Jordan games.
Wow, that pause after rewatch of Bulls indicates just how proud he is of that hilarious play on words.
It's like he was waiting for the laugh track.
Oh, wait, do you want to pretend like we're the laugh track?
Near the end called The Rewatchables.
Yes. Oh, boy. Pearl Jam at 4:12, which is a long time to get to Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
I guess you can really stretch out if you're doing 2 hours and 12 minutes with one guy. At 8:30, tests. He means tests.
The instant tests.
And then swallow.
Where they could just prick somebody's finger.
And then he says the word prick.
Yeah. How does he think the instant test works? It's going to be like checking your blood sugar?
Maybe he just thinks it's like playing a scratch off. Like, oh, hang on, look at the instant test. Cherry? Oh, it just says 10 written out for some reason. At 13:35, agreeable Bill.
Don't have access.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Non-committal, not listening Bill. We've come.
It's like resigned. Yeah.
Matt, when you're talking about the profits you earn from people who attend an event, you can talk about the attendance or you can talk about the gate. But I'm not sure, as Bill tries to do at 14:19, you can do both.
They're going to lose the attendance gate.
Isn't that redundant?
No.
Is there any other
Chris,
kind of attendance gate?
You're missing it. It's a scandal.
Oh, right.
It's like a conspiracy about attendance.
And now, day 7 of attendance gate. Are they losing it? At 14:32, remember when I said he means tests?
I think the big things will be the tests.
Maybe it's his hate for Joe Tessitore.
Yes.
At 18:14, Russillo realizes finally what we've known all along.
So you're good at it, is what you're saying.
No. So I'm just saying, so my one experience doing this, my takeaway actually would have been the right takeaway.
So no, I'm not saying I'm good at this, but listen, whenever I've done it, I've been right.
First of all, he's an albino.
Is he really?
He definitely looks like an albino type of guy, like very pale skin, white hair. He's kind of got eyes.
Who are we talking about again?
Walsh?
Walsh, yeah, John Walsh.
Yeah. I was going to say Joe Walsh, the hardest drinking man in show business. Bill's saying to Russillo, you got to be prepared. He's an albino. Like, he's going to jump up and throw a ninja star at you or something. Like, be ready. These albinos are tricky.
Like, just be ready. Like, looks like Santa Claus.
I've looked at about 10 photos of him, and in one of them...
Do you have Safe Search on?
There's one picture where I'm like, okay, he's kind of albino looking, but still wouldn't have guessed. I mean, really, he just looks like he's a white-haired man.
Words to live by at 31:10.
Now, if you're saying something, but it's idiotic, that's bad too.
Huh. Bill needs to take his own advice.
He's got to write that philosophy book that we all know is deep inside of. Actually, it's going to be the philosophy of Bill Simmons 2.0, just a bunch of fucking podcasts that he has to prepare for. I hate this ad phrase at 32:39.
It's the best fitness and sleep monitor tracker out there. And
it's a fitness and sleep monitor tracker, which makes it sound like it's a tracker that tracks fitness sleep monitors.
Right.
Well, it's like, yeah, all the people that have Fitbits, If you're not sure where all your Fitbits are, you get one of these Whoop things and it tracks them.
No, what it's for is if you're one of these people like me who thinks that all the big tech data is out to get you and is stealing your information, this is keeping track of those things.
Oh, smart.
So it's like if you think your Fitbit is secretly sending Microsoft or whoever the f*** owns Fitbit your data, don't worry, get a Whoop.
At 37:30, my notes say PLW.
I just don't think Ballmer is going to just plow over them and overrule them.
Of course. I should have known. It's Bill's verb of the week.
But why didn't you write the word out?
Man, I'm a very busy and important man here during the quarantine. I don't have time to write the O in plow.
It's like it's the letter that makes it a word.
Yeah, but if I had written pow or plow, I probably could have figured it out from plow.
Plo Koon.
Plo Koon?
Yeah, Plo Koon this is nerdy. He's a Jedi.
Oh, how did I not pick up on the Plo Koon reference? What is that from?
Clone Wars. By the way, very good. Really killing it right now.
At 39:48, this Joe Bluth nominee.
The decision maker is
Very rhythmic. At 42:19, this swallow.
it's even worse than the Quipper situation.
If he's going to take that long of a pause to get through the swallow, just pause half a second longer and finish swallowing. At 45:13, Judge Matt, you're on the clock.
The Theo Epstein Cubs.
I don't know why. What are you going to make a decision on? It did sound like you said a lot of C's in Cubs.
Yeah, but it can't be a CH because that would be Chubbs.
Wasn't that the name of the golf pro in Happy Gilmore?
Sorry.
Oh, jeez, it's Matt. And he coughs in one of these too, and we're going to make fun of him. You know, what I could say is, for the lazy editor in me, we're just going to leave that in. But I'll take it out because I'm thoughtful, and then maybe put it at the end to mock you instead. At 47:34, breathing in the background.
What was it like? Seriously, had it been Dominique Wilkins?
Sounded like he let the air out of a balloon.
They do all these on Zoom, which means there's video on all these. But do they release the video? Because I'm dying to see him go on the video. I just don't get it.
It had been Dominique Wilkins.
At 48:52,
They have a lot of winning tradition and generations, and
It has a lot of generations.
I had forgotten about that. It's not a brand new city. I think somebody sent this to me on Twitter at 50 minutes
Wait, are
and
you being
48
serious?
Yeah. At 50 minutes and 48 seconds, the World Health Organization.
from the CDC and WHO.
Do people call it the WHO?
No, I don't think so. It's the WHO. Also, the way he said it was like by the CDC and who?
Who?
Yeah.
Like, who else?
It's like the Ron Burgundy.
Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter?
At 51:54.
I still can't get over somebody sending you something on Twitter.
I can't remember exactly where it was. It was either Twitter, Instagram, or maybe Reddit. I'm not sure. But I think it was Twitter. But of course, it was like 15 days ago because that's when this actually came out. I don't know if Bill is describing himself at 53 or the reason he has become successful.
The guy who was awesome in high school and won 3 state championships at QB and point guard and dated the best looking cheerleader. And now he's still living in the cities. He's 32. He's about 75 pounds heavier. He's kind of off and on golf pro at the local club.
Sounded like there was a little bit of venom
Yes,
in that description. Don't you think, Matt?
definitely.
This is something that really bothers me, and it's something Bill has always done. It's the way he pronounces Malik Monk's last name at 57 minutes.
And
Yeah,
then
Miles.
Monk, who I'll never give up on.
He always calls him Monk. Monk is actually a real word.
Yeah, it's like a member of a Catholic order.
Yeah. Robot judges.
Monk.
Monk. Monk.
Did any of those sound like monk?
No.
All right. Now, just to be sure, there is a word that includes the word monk. It is the name of an animal. I'm not thinking of monkfish. I'm thinking of monkey. Not monkey, monkey. Now, perhaps all this time, I and everyone I've ever spoken to or have heard speak about monkeys has said it wrong. But let's check just to be sure.
Monkey.
So close. It almost sounded like she was going to say monkey, but then, as all people have always done, she pronounced it monkey. I don't know why this bothers me so much. It's just f***ing irritating.
They took Monk over Mitchell the year before.
Damn it. There he is again. That's at 57:15. It's not Monk, just to reiterate.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
You hadn't picked up on that. At 101:37, you know how Bill is usually so affirmative, Matt?
Yeah.
Or affirming?
Yeah.
Not always. That's all. At 102:10, great success for our boy Bill when he manages to get this cliche correct.
It checks every box for I would not want to run that team.
I think that's right. He doesn't say check box. He doesn't say it checks off every check box. I think he actually did it right. At 104.20, Matt, I always liked Bill's homeless man's version. You know, there had always been the cliche, this guy's a poor man's version of this guy, and then he came up with the even better homeless man's version. Mm-hmm. But then he tries to top himself here and fails.
Towns is the poor man's, homeless man's version of that.
So it's like if the poor man had a homeless man as a pet?
Well, no. It's like if there was somebody who was the poor man's version of Michael Jordan, so we'll say it's Isaiah Ryder, and then the homeless man's version of Isaiah Ryder. So it would be like, I don't know, me. At 106.23, The Swallow.
I can work with that. I can work with the crazy owner.
Matt, how many times would it have been possible for Steve Nash to make the finals in the 2005 to 2007 range?
Potentially 3?
I'm not sure. Might be more than that at 106.36.
They almost made the finals a bunch of times with Nash in that 05 to 07 range.
The most they could have done was 3. In 2004, 2005, they lost in the conference finals. In 2005, 2006, they lost in the conference finals. In 2006, 2007, they lost in the conference semifinals. So they almost made the finals twice?
A bunch of times.
And then at 108.16, I don't like the way he says ultimately.
Like ultimately.
Ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately.
Too many T's in that word, Chris. Get rid of some of them.
Like ultimately.
At 114.22, it is clear what Bill wants to do.
And I would want to do the thing for 2 years.
The thing.
Yeah, for 2 years, though.
At 114.29, grab bag guy.
I'm just going to be grab bag guy.
At 117.
Well, it's like a superhero.
Yeah, grab bag guy. What do you think his powers are?
Something to do with collecting things.
Maybe he's a super villain.
Okay,
like,
he's like a serial purse snatcher.
Tonight on News at 6, beware of your bags. Grab bag guy is on the loose. At 120.44, out of context theater.
Just liked it. Makes me happy holding it.
That's actually an ad for Miller, possibly Miller Lite. I've never felt happy because I've been holding a beer. God, this can feels so fucking good. Or bottle.
Ergonomic.
Yeah, right. And really, Miller Lite's cans and bottles, pretty much the same as all other cans and bottles of beer.
Yeah.
At 121.58, This Swallow.
97, 98. His Last Dance.
At 122.04, This Swallow.
A bunch of things. Second episode.
At 123.20, what is he doing with the trophy?
The title, he's cradling the trophy.
I think it's got to be cradling.
Cradling the trophy.
I guess it's cradling, right? At 127.13, missing article.
You also had really awesome season.
You had really awesome season.
It's like bad translation.
Caveman high school team. No need feel sad. Season over, but team grow very much. You had awesome season.
You also had really awesome season.
At 130.30, This Swallow.
Perkins. They get Vlade Divac.
Matt, at 138.34, do you know which three-pointers he's talking about?
1 for 11 total in these 3-pointers. Like
I'm not sure, but it sounded like he was in them.
Affirmation at 142.22.
For a decade.
right.
How many first title seasons does a team get, Matt?
I think just one.
It's a tricky math question. I sprung this one on you. At 146.37, here's the answer.
The best of all those 3 first title seasons.
Turns out the Bulls had 3 first title seasons. He probably means of those first 3 title seasons. At 147.37, Matt, this is during the Rewatchables portion. Turns out that in order to prepare, not only did Ryan watch the game they're discussing, Bill also watched it and saw things.
Coach
I
Czar,
saw that.
is that?
He's very excited to agree with Ryan that he also saw the thing that Ryan saw in the game they both watched.
It was so great.
I do remember. At 151.20, I'm surprised that the Bulls defenders were able to do this to Magic Johnson.
They're really swarming Magic from far away.
I think usually when you swarm somebody, you have to get up close. But
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, the Bulls were very good, very tenacious on D, very athletic. So they were able to swarm him from far away. I don't know how they did it. Maybe really long arms? I think he's got to mean from far away from the hoop. Get closer to him. No, this swarming works from way over here. At 152.22, this laugh. At 152.40, Bill has a "the" in both the quote and outside the quote.
People would go, the quote unquote, the shot over Cleveland.
The quote unquote, the shot.
The shot.
Yes.
But
wait, you mean any of the shot? No, you know the one I mean. The shot. At 153.08, this Joe Bluth nominee, or possibly this double choke.
Not tough enough. Doesn't Choked. Stage a little too big for him.
That's pretty tough, Matt. If you choke, that's one thing. But if you choked, doesn't it sound like something you do to start like an old gas-powered lawnmower? Like, well, did you choke it? No. Well, try that. And if it doesn't work, choke it. Matt, the probability understanding here at 153.35 is nothing short of astounding.
Would it have happened anyway? Probably.
Yes.
But maybe even definitely.
How do you calculate those odds? Maybe, definitely.
Either Jordan would have probably been great, or he would have definitely maybe have been great. Or maybe definitely.
Maybe, definitely. Yeah.
Maybe even. It's like a probabilistic range. At 20102, our listeners can empathize.
We're at the 2-hour mark.
Even he knows it's going long. At 20122, this Hall of Fame swallow.
Shoot any threes in this game, basically. He made one.
Wow, with a Buffalo Bill intro. Missed it first time around. At 20242, agreement.
You know how when you watch like a jungle cat walk and it's this body control that it's just so smooth and
right.
I do know exactly what you're saying about jungle cat's smoothness. I love the fact that Bill thinks this is English at 20404.
The Charles Smith game was really a terrifying situation because if they don't cut that out, now they're down 3-2, but Game 7's in New York.
If they don't cut that out, meaning if they don't stop doing the Charles Smith game, or if they don't knock it off, the Charles Smith game, hey, you kids, cut it out with that whole Charles Smith game in the NBA playoffs. At 210.
Well, you'll have multiple guests.
He knows so much about it.
This is not one of these budget economy podcasts where they have a single guest. Oh, no. The Ryan Russillo podcast. Multiple. And then, Matt, as you like to do at 210:32, this cough into a microphone.
Point. You never know. Big music.
As we always say, Matt, turn away from the recording instrument so that your cough will not be recorded. At 212, bad branding.
And we'll do at least one more BS pod.
We'll be back after this.
Monkey.
Matt, we use Anchor.fm for the Bill Simmons podcast. Anchor.fm allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, and it's free. Anchor will not only let you record and edit, you can also distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more through Anchor. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, which is handy for the Bill Simmons podcast. Anchor.fm has everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started. All right,
I have a note at 103, but I can't remember if it was this one or the next pod.
All right, good job, Matt.
Who's he talk to in the next pod?
This is why this guy has 7 houses, and we're sitting in, well, at least 50% of us in our daughter's bedroom.
Yeah, this is why.
It's your bad research that's holding us back. In the second podcast of last week, things started out with Casey Wasserman, who I believe is very rich. But before that, at 142, raising awareness for something.
They're doing it because they're trying to raise awareness for a whole bunch of different COVID-19 charities and just in general, trying to make people a little more optimistic, bide the time, the whole thing.
So I think what they're trying to do is raise money and in general make people more optimistic, the whole thing, all of that.
Can you imagine giving to a charity whose job it was to make people optimistic? Man, what are some causes that I could give to in the world? Well, in Africa, there are many people who don't have clean water. In North Korea, there's an entire country that's just under a despot. Also, sometimes people are like a little down and pessimistic about things. Oh, let's make them better.
At 1 minute and 57 seconds, this is why Bill is so great.
Coming up, I have a podcast.
That's what the feed suggests. Pearl Jam at 2:36. Matt, the thing that stuck out to me about the Wasserman interview was the number of times he said the word obviously. Let's hear them all.
The obviously not every, obviously all the, obviously not obvious. They obviously, the board obviously is obvious. There's obviously March, which obviously doesn't, obviously around, obviously I saw what happened.
At 3:05, this laughter. Terrifying, slowed down. At 4:26, this laughter.
Now that one's terrifying even when you don't slow it down, Chris.
Yes, but more terrifying. Terrifying-er slowed down. At 8:48, Bill doesn't seem to understand that transmission of COVID-19 is more likely in basketball, where the players are always coming into contact with each other.
Well, it seemed like it would be easier for the NBA than baseball.
Definitely wrong.
At 14:15,
Only people come in and out. That's it.
maybe he's thinking like, we're not going to let any germs in, and we're definitely not going to let any germs out. At 15:02, who knew how technologically advanced domes were?
They basically built him a little dome, state of the art.
That dome was state of the art. It's just a dome. Just a dome filled with air. At 15:09, either he says whether they at Vegas or he says whether they Vegas. I'll let you be the judge, Matt.
Whether they're Vegas or LA.
I don't know that he says any of those things.
Well, he definitely does not say whether they were at Vegas or in Vegas.
Whether they're Vegas or LA.
At 16:31, despite the common understanding, believable should not be pronounced with a V.
Unbelievable.
Sounds like he's trying to say planetarium. At 20:06, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Are we sure it happens?
At 24:29, how many does LA have?
LA has 7, 8 of them.
7, 8 of them. Is he just a drunk? Maybe you just say 7 or 8 of them. I think he's talking about like world-class stadiums or sporting facilities. At 24:30, this swallow.
Because do you suck?
At 27:03, this Joe Bluth nominee.
I first really started thinking about it.
At 29:23, listen to the weird pause after yelling.
Where's my call? All right, Casey.
They had to have edited something out there, right?
Well, either that or he just like was going to say something and then abandoned it because he was like, nah. But when have we ever known Bill to abandon a thought?
He was just like yelling. Now the podcast is over. And then during this promo for the new Down in the Hole or whatever it's called, Wired podcast about the
Sounds
Wire.
dumb every time he says it.
But during a promo for the Down Deep in the Hole or whatever it's called, at 30:40, Bill says this.
And there's winners and losers at the end of every season podcast, all that stuff.
So is he promoting a podcast by saying it will have podcasts and all that stuff on the podcast? Or is he saying, don't worry, they will have podcasts where they give their opinion on the winners and losers of every season?
Yeah, that one.
But also all that stuff.
All that stuff.
Which means winners and losers podcasts and other winners and losers podcast stuff.
We'll be right back after this.
Matt, as always, we want to thank the people that support us monetarily, not the people that support us emotionally, because honestly, emotional support doesn't pay the bills the way Josh N., Jeff G., Scott B., Sean, and our friends at College Football Brothers Podcast support us with money. They do it through Patreon, patreon.com/bspodpod. You can also support us as David P. and Scott B. do through Anchor. That's anchor.fm/bspodpod. David, as we always say, you're giving us too much money. Also, I think Scott B. is possibly giving us money through Anchor and Patreon. Scott, it's not worth it. Thank you very much to our producers. Here are all the things Bill and his guests found delicious in the last week. Or just funny sounds.
Oh,
We got
wow.
21.
Oh, yeah.
Come say hi to.
At 32:10, affirmation.
It's just good to have you guys back. It's just good to see you out.
What he's trying to say is this is normal for 2 hours, but instead he says this at 32:22.
This is normal for 2 hours.
I guess what he means to say is life is normal for 2 hours, or this programming is normal for 2 hours?
The real problem with it is that he's just so ready to get to the next sentence that he just like steamroll. He plows through this one.
Yeah, very good. Good job, Matt. I approve. At 38:25, it turns out this is a euphemism for having sexual interactions with another person.
Guy might have been down the road with some other women.
Is that a thing?
No.
Hey, how
I've
was
never
summer
heard
camp? I was sweet. I went down the road with a couple of girls. Ooh, how far down the road? All the way to the barn. I went several blocks. Ooh, did you go all the blocks? No, but I did go several. At 40 minutes and 12 seconds, this Joe Bluth nominee.
Why? You always do the most dramatic ceremony ever thing.
At 44:16, the gall Bill has to criticize someone for this.
My wife used to bet before she had our second kid and stopped writing completely, but she used to write little recaps.
How can he ever have the temerity to criticize someone for not writing anymore? And also, his wife's job, at least as far as I know, was not being a writer. You get it, Matt?
I got it. Yeah,
because he used to be a writer, but he doesn't do that anymore.
It.
At 45:46, this is not the way bar conversations go, even at 2 o'clock in the morning.
If you're at a bar at 2 o'clock in the morning, could come up. Half the people knew what you were talking about.
When would you ever come up to a person at 2 o'clock in the morning and then just be like, "Hey, Melrose Place, right?" At 46:46,
Bachelor Nation wasn't taking those 5, maybe even 8 years.
There's been a lot of that recently where it's like the connection is bad and they just leave it in.
I mean, it's understandable if it's live. Those things happen. It's, I guess, understandable if whatever he's saying is to some degree intelligible and vitally important. But why he doesn't just, we do this several times, a recording, Matt. I didn't get all that. It sounded like there was bad audio. Can you repeat that? No mention of it, just a bunch of random consonants. At 50:44, this Joe Bluth nominee.
It kind of crossed the line. So he was basically like, there's no way we're putting that back on.
My favorite, where he's just like, here's what it did. Here's what it did. Moving on. At 52:04, it turns out that powerful people have influential strides.
The 2 most influential paces for powerful people.
The only other alternative I could come up with, Matt, was salsa.
Okay.
Used to be called picante sauce. At 57:34, I don't even think the typical umbrella analogy works here.
Quarantine everybody, put them all under one umbrella.
You can put like brands under an umbrella, but can you put a bunch of different people under a security umbrella? He's just making it up as he goes along, right?
Yes, right.
At 57:52.
Because we have Listen to Your Heart on.
You don't know how many times I've tried to convince someone to listen to mine. And all those women have refused. At 58:16.
Me too.
I know, and I felt like I almost had you persuaded, and then you were still like, I'm not listening to that, Chris. At 58:16, this laughter. Scary slowed down. At 1 hour, 21 seconds, this laughter.
It's a good one.
It is good, but it's better, Matt. Slowed down. At 104:44, I think Bill is having trouble with the time stream again.
It was one of the best weekends of the year.
It was not one of the best weekends of the year. It could have been a great weekend of the year, the weekend that the Masters was on.
Right.
And also it would have been Easter. And maybe the NCAA tournament was just finishing up with, like, I guess, the 2 Final Four games on Saturday. But it was not one of the best weekends of the year. None of that happened. At 111:27, this Joe Bluth nominee.
All right, we'll include you on the Apollo. The anniversary's coming up.
We'll include you on the something else. Bill loves to talk about podcast feeds, like here at 113:05.
The new podcast with Pete Carroll and Steve Kerr. Its own feed. Yeah, that happened.
I don't know why that's so exciting.
There's no verb in there. He's just like, here's a podcast, then goes on to say, its own feed. Doesn't say, we gave it its own, it has its own, it's received its own, just its own feed. Yeah, that happened. And then at 113:34, variables.
They go into every single variable, what they like.
Variables, so important these days. The third dude was Mike Tolan, famously involved with the MJ Doc and 30 for 30 and other crap. Bill loves to talk about how they're friends and have Clippers tickets. 114:31. It's a celebration.
And Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Come on, Matt. We got to give it up for Big Bill. At 115:36, is this how bills work after a Joe Bluth nominee?
Our bill is still getting charged for playoff tickets.
Do you charge someone's bill?
Yeah, that's how you use the bill to pay it. Chris, I got news for you.
Yeah.
If I could use the bill to pay things, I would be rich.
Maybe the bill that's getting charged is Bill Simmons.
Oh, okay.
At 117:06, this laughter. Ooh,
It's like the count.
that's got to be the most ominous slowdown. At 126:53, no one believes you, Bill.
I wasn't even being a dick. I was just like, there's no way. He would have done it by now. I don't believe it. I don't believe he's going to do it.
Yeah, he was totally being a dick. No question. And 129:21, this Joe Bluth nominee.
MJ's going to back out. Something's going to happen. And it just never happened.
A lot of reading between the lines there, I think, on that. At 130:25, this Buffalo Bill swallow.
A clip of like Isaiah Thomas talking about the famous walk-off.
Hey, were there
was
any,
Was that a real big walk-off?
I was going to say, was it a real big fat girl named Isaiah Thomas?
You try it. We'll definitely have no poll. Let's hear yours.
Oh, hey, was that a big fat girl named Isaiah Thomas?
It puts the walk-off in the basket or it gets the hose again. That's a new idea.
That's good, yeah.
At 1:30:58, for the second time in a week, Bill watches something. The person he's talking to knows he watched it because they're talking about it, but Bill still acclaims that he saw it.
Sam in the Eastern
Yeah, I saw it.
Listen, I definitely was paying attention the whole time. At 1:35, turns out the Andre the Giant doc was very popular for exactly the reason you would expect.
Andre, I think, is probably the most watched sports documentary just for how many people probably saw.
It turns out the reason it was the most watched was based on so many people seeing it or watching it. At 1:41:10, Matt, we're going to need your judging.
Okay.
Is it a handshake half hug?
Well, the problem there, Chris, is that he basically merged handshake and hug to handshake hug.
Handshake half hug.
Yeah, oh, sorry, yes.
At 1:46:07, another dropped V.
Every set.
Oh, no, it's not a dropped V. It's a dropped T. Airy sip.
Every set.
At 1:46:31, bad branding right at the very end.
Coming back on the BS podcast.
Matt, it's the BS podcast. That's it for this week. I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
Oh, hey, was that a big fat girl named Isaiah Thomas?
The thing that made Bill great, and still on occasion does, is that he was just sort of the everyman. No special access, no special relationships. He was just a guy sitting on his couch making great points in very clever ways.
Yeah, now he's the everyman with 7 houses.
Well, now he's not everyman. He's a rich dude who can get Kevin Durant on his show 5 times in a year and a half, who has conversations with Adam Silver. What he has done is succeed himself out of
his success.
It's the Peter principle. My dad always tells me about the Peter principle, which is basically everyone in business succeeds to their level of incompetence. So once you are good enough to be promoted, you keep getting promoted until you're not good enough.
You can't do your job
and
anymore.
then you keep doing the same job that you're not good enough to do.
Yeah, what does that have to do with Peter?
It's named after him.
Oh.
I don't know.
Pan?
I was thinking Peter from the Bible. It was like Peter turned out to be a great pope, but that's where it stopped. Right? Wasn't he the number 1 pope? Peter was a top 1 lottery pick.
In this decade.
For popes. Yeah.